Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Fun Friend Friday here on Success Life Live. My name is Eric Reed. I am your host, and because it is Fun Friend Friday, we have to wear the festive frocks. I don't know how we got started on this. Well, I do. It was actually our good friend Sonia. She got started on the festive frocks, and now it's become a thing that we got to keep going, got to keep doing. And so, welcome to Fun Friend Friday and festive frocks and all of the other chaos. I'm just taking a minute down here to share this out, and I encourage you to do the same. Hit your share button, get it out, get it known, let people know what's going on today on Fun Friend Friday. I think I got it set. So good morning, everybody. Good morning, Steve. Good morning, Sonia. Good morning, Julia. Good morning, Al. Good morning, everybody, to Fun Friday. I think Friday is my favorite day of the week because it is Fun Friend Friday in Fiesta Frocks. You know, do I look like a Christmas tree? Really? Because it's got like these, see, like there's hot sauce and chili peppers and cocktail glasses and all kinds of vacation inspired theme things. Yeah. You know, the sad part is, if I should pass this week and somebody goes into my closet and they see a collection of these, it's really going to tell a sad story that in my closet I had multiple Fun Friend Friday frocks. But you know what? I don't care what people think, because this is my life and I'm loving it. So we are going to get started here in just a moment with our Fun Friend Friday guest, Julia. I see she is in the house and all set up. Just to remind you real quick, Julia, make sure your phone is in this mode. It looks like for some reason I'm not getting the option to add you, and it may be simply because you're on a laptop and I'm on a phone, or you're on a phone and it's like this or something like that. So take a minute, sign out, sign back in, make sure your phone is in this position, and I'll try and connect us in just a moment. Just a quick recap, lots of big changes going on. I've been really condensing down a lot of things and expanding some other things. Getting really refined as we move towards the end of the year and into next year. I want to make sure that we've got a couple programs and masterminds and small groups and group coaching and individual coaching spots available. So that is what has been going on. I know, Charles, you got to love this shirt because it's Fun Friend Friday. And we love the shirt on Fun Friend Friday because it's Fun Friend Friday with a festive frock. There we go. Sorry, festive frock. So thank you so much for that. So again, if you haven't checked out the website, ericgreed.com, a lot of changes going on each day. Monday through Thursday, there's a new blog that typically reflects or copies or shares the morning show live at 8 o'clock. And so you'll want to check that out. And then the podcast and YouTube channel are taking off on their own as well. So I am going to try and add our guests so we can dive in and get started on Fun Friend Friday. Why I do that, take a moment. There you go, Julia. That's what I needed to see. Take a moment and share this out and invite somebody into the room. See, you're perfect. Perfect timing. Let me just hit this button. I'm going to hit this button. Don't you love it when you get to see my big old thumb coming at the camera? There we go. And should be, there we go. Adding. So again, Fun Friend Friday, Fiesta Frocks. And my guest, Julia, should be jumping in here in just a moment. There she is.
Hi.
See, I've done this now like once or twice, so I can always tell when somebody's either on a laptop or their phone's not connected or something's off. Is everything good on your end?
Everything's good. How about on your end?
Everything's good. You're a little quiet.
Am I?
Yeah, so go ahead and feel free to scream because it's only, 5 o'clock in the morning there? You're not going to wake anybody.
I'm kind of challenged because you know what happened the other day. So I'm sitting in an awkward position, and I'll try to speak clearly and loudly.
That works for me. And it may be my reception phone. Everybody give her a thumbs up, give her a big heart, and give her a big smile and let her know that she is in the room and it is good.
Good morning, everyone.
Charles says you look great, and Charles is an experienced Fun Friend Friday guest.
Thank you,
So if
Charles.
he says you look great, then you're great.
Awesome.
And I'm just going to do this. This is part of the whole, keeping, when I teach people about marketing and social media, I say, keep it natural, keep it real. So seeing my finger on the camera, natural and real. So good morning. How are you, my dear?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am good. I am good. Now you're like West Coast, so it's 5 a.m.
No, that was my vacation. I'm actually in Michigan.
Oh, so you're just an hour off.
I'm just an hour off.
Okay. And, poor Michigan, that's just such a sad place to live. Michigan, I grew up in Ohio. And so Michiganders and Ohioans, there's this like little thing.
Yeah.
And our neighbors actually, one was in Ohio State and one was in Michigan State. And during that one day of the year, they almost settled on a divorce. So I won't pull out my Ohio-ness too much.
That's good because I'm definitely a Wolverine. Since I graduated from Michigan, I take that kind of personally.
Okay, go blue. Go blue. I am so excited to have you here. I appreciate the fact that you join us almost every single morning on Success Life Live. And that just warms my heart. And so before we get started, I wanted to say thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much, Eric. I'm so blessed to be here, and I'm just in awe of you every day. So, like, for you to actually ask me to be part of your morning Fun Friend Friday morning is just such an honor. So, thank you.
Now try and do Fun Friend Friday with festive frocks 5 times.
I don't know if I can do that. Fun Friend Friday with festive frocks.
Yes, Fun Friend Fridays with festive frocks in the fall. Yeah, it's like I'm about to give up on it because sometimes in all good, Dennis LaRue. Yeah, but see, Dennis is Army, and so I know he's gonna snap back here in a minute because go Army, right, Dennis? So I wanted to dive in because there was something as I was reading into more about you and understanding more about you that really jumped out. And it kind of jumped out because I was on a call the other day, and it was funny because the podcast radio show spoke to those 60 and older. Yeah. And I don't know how I got invited. But one of the questions that came up was that sandwich generation that we are. And then I noticed that you had been in home health care and hospice care for 21 years.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
21 years in hospice care.
Yes.
Thank you for that service because that is not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not. And it actually is something that I treasured. My dad actually founded a hospice. So I kind of had this my whole life. I was kind of inspired by him. And I was going along in home care for many years. And then I decided I need to be in hospice. It was just kind of like, I got to do this. So I did it. And it was such a blessing to me that people would allow me to be part of that portion of their life. I mean, it's such a fragile state they're in, and it's such a private, intimate moment for a family. And for them to allow me to be part of that was just such a great gift to me.
So, and I worked alongside hospice, not even close to the degree that you did. And so for those that don't understand, if you're outside the hospice system, you think it's on, you're sending them off to the farm to die. Where in often hospice, that isn't the intent. The intent is just to reduce the amount of medical intervention that's occurring and to let life progress naturally.
Yes. And for me, hospice is allowing people to die with dignity, to actually die in peace and comfort and not in a stressful situation, dying in the hospital, in a cold room, where they're being waken up every 15 minutes for somebody to take their blood pressure. They're allowed to be comfortable in their own setting and to just die peacefully and naturally.
So I imagine sitting in hospice for 21 years, at bedsides, there were a lot of alone moments with the patients.
Mm-hmm.
And in those alone moments, there were confessions or conversations. Mm-hmm. What were those like?
They were, some of them were very wonderful and some of them were not. And some of them were very painful and some were very painful for me. I remember one gentleman who, on his deathbed, we had had many conversations about Jesus, and he was a non-believer. And so I tried to plant seeds along the way. And that was probably the most painful death for me. When he died, and right seconds before he died, we said, "Can we pray with you?" And he said no. And that to me was, I took that very hard. It ate away at me for quite some time, because he was a wonderful person, but I was very concerned about his outcome in eternity.
And so, which is an interesting, and I am a person of faith, I often think that we have this moment that's somewhere between what we see here in this physical form and where we step to next. It's kind of like that space when you're at the airport between arrivals and departures.
Yeah.
And in that, I think we get a moment to just breathe into everything and anything that's possible.
That was my hope for him. So
I have to think, if I have to believe that there's, because of the grace, because of the love, because of the mercy, it's not necessarily a second chance. It's just being removed from all the pain and all the doubts and all of the ego long enough to see what we couldn't see in the physical.
Sure. Yes. And I had many, many beautiful deaths that were just a gift for me to be a part of, people with family members singing at the bedside and holding their hands, and little kids kissing their hands and that kind of thing. So to me, that was beautiful.
So 21 years sitting alongside people that are transitioning from the physical to the spiritual, from life to after. I would imagine that at some point you're like, after today, I'm never doing, or I'm always going to.
Yeah, it's something you have to take a step back and really think about how you're living your life. You view life very differently when you see it from the eyes of a dying patient. So,
and go into that. Share with us.
The big takeaway for me was, don't live a life that you're going to regret. Live a life full of passion, love, purpose. Tell the people you love that you love them. Tell them every day. Let them know how important they are to you. Don't be the person sitting there regretting, gosh, I wish I would have said this, or I wish I would have done this. Live to your fullest every single day, and make the connections to the people around you that are important. When you're just drifting through life, and I think about my son. He's 30 years old, and he's gone through some struggles and made some decisions that I don't always agree with. And I try to support him the best way I can, but I never want to leave him feeling, even when I've let him know that I don't agree with what he's doing. I never want to leave him thinking that I don't love him and I don't care for him and I'm not there for him. So
I want to jump in two directions. So I'm going to take a short one, then a long jump.
Okay.
I have a 9-year-old who is extremely sensitive.
Oh.
Like spills the milk and wants to hide under the bed for a week. He makes a mistake, it's black. So I've had to learn that lesson of always saying, I love you. The behavior I'm seeing is not something I like. Or, really helping him distinguish what he's doing, where he's at, the grades on his paper, the spilled milk on the table doesn't separate us. And then ask him, is there a way that we could enjoy each other's company more by not doing or changing or whatever? So I thank you for reminding me that at 30, I'm going to still have to be having that lesson and that conversation. I thought it was just until he was like 10 or 11. No,
you'll be having it until he's 50. 60.
Oh, God. I'm exhausted just thinking.
Yeah.
The second thing is, I sort of had this flash of a book title. If you were going to write the book, Lessons Learned at a Dying Man's Bedside, What would be some of those lessons?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Lessons learned at the dying man's bedside. Well, I think number one is um, follow your dreams, make it happen, make whatever it is that you want to do in life a reality. Because when you reach a certain point, there's no going back, and when you're too old to get out of the chair, and you're struggling with health conditions, you want to know that you've lived that life the way that God intended you to live it, and the way you intended to live it, not with regrets and saying, gosh, I wish I had started that business I wanted to start, or I wish I had had a job that fulfilled me, or gosh, I wish I hadn't smoked 20 packs of cigarettes a day, things like that. those are
Okay.
those are the lessons that I think are critical. And my dad, it was a big influence on my life, and one of the things that he taught me was to really love the people around you and let them know they're loved. Before he died, he actually had a massive heart attack, and we didn't think he was going to make it. He made it and lived 3 more months. And in that 3 months, he sat down with every one of his children. There were 8 of us. And he told us how much he loved us and what we meant to him. And he also had his book published before he died, which was a dream of his. And he actually he had created a hospice home, and it was the founder of a hospice home. A beautiful place where patients had a private room and could overlooking the water, and you could go there regardless of whether you could pay or not. So it was very nice. And he got to see the plan. He didn't get to see the actual home when it was built, but he got to see the plans for it. And they had a big dinner where they celebrated him, which was wonderful, right before the night before he died. So
Interesting. I love that image that some of us live as if we're in hospice care, like we're dying,
mm-hmm.
and so there's no point in waking up and doing anything productive, like
Yeah.
the zombie lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And yet those people who are truly in hospice care want nothing more than to get out of it and do one more thing,
Yeah.
make one more connection, make one more hug, make one more
Right.
dive into their dream.
Yeah. And I think about I look at my own family and my kids. My son Matthew, he is actually 28 years old, and he is working like he's 90. And I told him, if you're not living the way that you want to be living, then you need to make changes to make that happen, to make your life better and enjoy life. Don't forget to smell the roses along the way and do the things that you love to do.
Amen. I mean, I through personal experience, and won't go into it, I had that moment 20 some years ago. And so I'm like, what do they say? I'm on borrowed time, or the clock stopped ticking, but I'm still living. And so at that point, I was like, well, if I've only got and honestly, this is what I did, people. I bought a brand new car, like my fantasy car, because they said, well, I'm supposed to be dead before I pay it off anyhow, so they can just repossess. Like, I know it's kind of a warped mindset, but I thought, well, at least if I'm going out in the car that I want. I ended up having to pay that car off, by the way, which, okay, good thing, bad thing moment. But it also sort of started teaching me that now is not later.
Mm-hmm.
And that I kept thinking, well, I don't deserve a car like that because I can do that later. I can wait for that opportunity. I can wait for that privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And when I didn't see that as an option anymore because of the circumstances that they are, I was like, well, I'm taking advantage of it now. Even if it hurts me somehow, I'm still taking advantage of it.
That's a great way to live, because you don't want to come to the end of your life and have regrets and say, gosh, I wish I had bought that green sports car that I wanted to drive just once.
Yeah. It was just for the record, it was a Jeep. I wanted the Jeep, the convertible, that whole experience. And so it was a good car. It was a fun car. I think, and like I said, I had the opportunity to be connected to hospice in a way. And those that because I sat at bedside, gave permission that it was okay to go, gave permission that it's okay to breathe and be at peace. The sad moments were when I was the only one in the room,
Mm-hmm.
except for the patient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's such a gift that you give to those people when you allow them to the opportunity to just shut their eyes and go. So many of them fight and fight and fight, and they're not fighting for themselves. They know what they want. They're ready to go. They're fighting for their family and for the people sitting at their bedside saying, "Don't leave me," you know. So when you give them that permission, they just go so peacefully.
And we had Gail on quite a while ago as a Fun Friend Friday, and she was in transplant care and transplant
Mm-hmm.
nursing. And as she said, you need to have that conversation often and
Mm-hmm.
frequently with family members about transplant and transplant care and what you want and what you don't want. I think the same thing occurs within the hospice community, because not everybody ends up in hospice care because of a long-term ailment like cancer or
Mm-hmm.
a heart condition, that it can happen rather suddenly.
Right.
And through a series of events. And so having those conversations with family when you're in a space,
Mm-hmm.
when you're in healing, when you're in a place where the tension isn't so high, saying, look, if ever you see me like this, the only thing you can do is give me permission to go. Or the only thing, like, make it known, have the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because in that conversation, you have the ability to also set aside things that would hold you back from going.
Right.
I know that personally, my mother passed away when I was not there. I was traveling and, circumstances being, no regret.
Mm-hmm.
But when it ended and we got through all the chaos and the commotion and the confusion of a funeral, I was like, I just want to know if, like,
Mm-hmm.
was she proud? Did she see? Did she know this? Did she know, like, all of those things that no matter how old you are as a child, you want to have that conversation with your
Right.
parents to know that like, how do you see me now versus when I was 10?
Mm-hmm. I
And
think
so,
that's very important. You hit something very key there, is to have those conversations and let your thoughts be known, let your expectations be known to your family members, and it takes the burden off of them to have to make those hard decisions later. So
yes.
yeah.
And I think it takes so again, I've sat there and sometimes it's not that the family member is being selfish, but because they have an unfinished thing.
Mm-hmm.
They have a hole in their heart, they have an unanswered question. There's something that they need to feel complete.
Mm-hmm.
They hold on to that person. They don't want him to go. They extend care and medical intervention and all of these things, though they love the person, but because they're not fulfilled in whatever way,
Mm-hmm.
they feel that the answer is that person lying in the bed. And that's like the hardest and worst time to try and dig out the answers.
Yes, and I can tell you, even in situations where there was turmoil in the family, there was never a parent that I ran into that wasn't proud of their children and would share with me. Even in situations where they didn't always agree and they hadn't talked in years, the parent was usually some way following them, in some way. Wanted to share and tell me how wonderful their kids were and what they were doing. And boy, my son, he's doing this, and boy, he's really good at it. So, I think sometimes we don't realize, even when when there's a strained relationship, that parent is usually always loving you and proud of you no matter what.
I think that chapter has to be written in the book, Lessons I Learned at a Dying Man's Bedside.
Yes.
And I would have to say, I hear that and I believe that, and that comforts in a way. because I think, and I've been there as well, where in those silent hours when the family's off doing the family thing, or the family has to return to taking care of life, they'll sit and they'll talk about their son, their daughter, their daughter-in-law, their grandchild, their brother, their sister, like the family members, and they talk about them in a larger timeline than last year's Christmas when everything went bad, or the debt that wasn't paid back. They talk about a life and the people that they've had in it. And because I think they're in a reflected place, and because they're in a different perspective, they're able to offer that grace and that love.
Yeah, when you're facing your death, things become very clear, and there's no more questions. You're in a different space, and I guess we won't really understand that until we go through it ourselves. But you look at the world from a different perspective.
Yeah, and so if you have that unresolved thing, and your parent or grandparent or brother or sister, aunt, uncle, family, even your child is passed on, here's my belief, and it's probably going to be completely crazy, and people are going to write in and tell me I'm an idiot. But I believe that when you step onto that, moving sidewalk kind of thing, that all knowledge, all awareness becomes accessible to you. And in that, you also become filled with abundant grace for everybody else. So the fact that I may feel guilty about something here on this plane, the person that I'm connected to that may have stepped onto the moving sidewalk, they're like, Eric, I see it. I understand it now. I see your hurt. I see your pain. I see something that happened in the past that made you act that way in the present. And now that I can see the two pieces, grace and love. And so during that journey between the physical and the full spiritual, I think that middle space is when all of that becomes real. And as they transition, they just extend grace and love down to everyone behind.
I agree. I think you couldn't have said that better.
Thank you. So I'm not crazy. Yay!
No, you're not crazy. I think we do. We get when we go, we're gonna know so much more than we ever dreamed of.
Yeah. I agree, and I think you have been gifted something that is very unique and an experience to be able to sit in those silent rooms with people and be present in that moment where they begin to release the ego, begin to release the self, and just breathe into all that is. And I will say, if you haven't been in that moment, if you haven't experienced, I don't wish it upon you anytime soon, but understand that what is being said is nobody complained about not being able to have this house or that car. But it really came down to, what are people feeling? Like, what is the connection between me and my child, me and my kids, or my spouse, my parents, my brothers, my sisters? How can I make sure they know what my true heart was, not my ego-driven behavior sometimes?
Right. And that's a really interesting topic. When you start walking through transformation and you start learning to live your life in alignment with your purpose and your passion and your values and your beliefs, all of that becomes very clear to you, and you start realizing, boy, I was really way off base, and boy, I really need to get over here and fix this relationship a little bit. And actually, Eric, I just want to say, I have to interrupt for 1 second. I see my daughter's on, and I just want to tell her I love you, Amanda. Thanks for showing up.
I didn't see you, Amanda. You can wave again so we can see you.
Yeah, so I have to say hi to her. She's a blessing too. But we go through these things in life, and we make mistakes. We learn from them. We grow from them. But sometimes I've learned that some of the mistakes I've made have impacted other people in a huge way. And, I strive all the time to try to let those people know I love you. Even though this happened in the past, I'm here for you. I love you. You mean the world to me. The other thing I've learned from my hospice experience is don't wait until the end of your life to improve those relationships, and don't wait till the end of your life to let your family, let your friends, let people know you love them and care for them, and you want to make amends for any mistakes that you've made in the past, and take responsibility for them, and make a better future.
That's where I like 12 step, because it sort of does take accountability, make amends.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mo and Fran. I see you guys jumped in. And it's interesting because my stepfather, who pretty much raised me, he and I had always had these very like soldier kind of relationships because of his personality and who he was and the way he came into our life. I always felt like I had to be very cardboard with him, and he was very cardboard with me. And through a series of events, he wrote his story of growing up in Nazi Germany as a 10-year-old boy, and how his father had been deployed to the front, and how every night they slept in the barn in haylofts because it was safe for them being in the house. And everything that we see in movies, he had lived through. And when he had written the book and he delivered it to only the kids, he said, I'm only giving it to you guys, and then based on that, I'll decide what to do. I could see him differently. I was like, oh, now I understand why it was difficult for you to parent me as a 10-year-old boy, because where you were at as a 10-year-old boy, what you received was different than what I needed. And it just put him and I in our relationship in perspective. And I think we as parents have an obligation to sometimes go back to our adult children and say, look, this is where I was at. This is who I was at when I was your mom or dad at 20 or 30, and you were 8, 9, and 10. And let them know that I've grown, I've transformed, I've learned. And so if you're still stuck in that relationship that we had when you were 8 and 9, I want to first make amends and apologize and speak into it. But I also want you to recognize that you and I now have an opportunity to change our relationship.
Right. And I think it's really important too to think about where they're at and what pain they're going through, because sometimes you get so caught up in your story and what's happened to you and what's going on, and rather than looking at what they're going through, you're looking at how it's affecting you. And I think you have to take a step back and really look at the other people in your lives and around you, and think about, okay, yes, this person is acting this way, but they're also hurting. They're also going through pain. It's not all about me,
No, and like I said, the book really gave me an insight of who he was and how he, what his experiences were. And then it was suddenly like, wait a minute, he has a whole story that doesn't include me.
Right.
And I've made everything about him in relationship to me. And I think we do that not only with our parents, but sometimes our brothers and sisters, even our kids and our workmates, is we have to recognize that there's a whole story occurring that we are not even a character in it. It's like we missed season 2 of episodes 1 through 12,
Right.
We're not in it, but yet we always try and bring it back to self.
Yes. And my dad was really wonderful when I was going through some difficult times, and I would come to him and I'd be upset or crying or unhappy about something. He would look at me and he'd give me a hug, and then he'd say, now go do something for somebody else and you'll feel better. Take the focus off yourself. So, and he's so right, because when we do for others and we work for others and we serve others, it just gives you this feeling inside of love and fulfillment. And when you're focusing on your problems or your own, boy, I wish, this was better in my life. You tend to get caught up in that negativity. But if you go out and help others and serve others, you're going to change things.
So you have 3 kids, right?
3 kids and 1 grandchild.
Oh, Lord, I don't even want to think about that. Like I said, mine are 9 and 8, and I've like got my AARP Silver Award membership last week. So grandkids, I'm going to be a Moses grandpa. So 3 kids.
3 kids.
And as you reflect on your dad, and then you reflect on your years in hospice care, and the lesson that you've taught us today about not wanting to wait.
Mm-hmm.
What are, either collectively or individually, what would you want the 3 kids to know? If you could finish the sentence, let me get it right. I see you as, and then for each of the kids.
For each of my kids. Okay. So for Amanda, she's my daughter she's 24 and she has a 4-year-old son. And I see her as so strong and so motivated.
I'm going to do a coaching thing. I want you to do it in the form of I see you, Amanda, as.
Okay. I see you, Amanda, as amazing. I see you as so determined and so hardworking and so full of love. And I don't know that Amanda sees herself that way, but that's how I view her.
Okay.
I think she's wonderful, and I think she is just, I just feel she handles things so well, and I see her just so determined to overcome struggles and so strong and confident. Let's see, for Matthew, I think I see Matthew as such a big-hearted person. He has so much kindness and compassion, and I see him in the future just becoming something amazing in his life.
And then the 3rd child?
Michael, he's my firstborn. And
Michael, I see you.
I see Michael as a strong leader. He's finding his way, but I see him as a very strong, confident leader. And he's so strong in his faith too, that he's going, if he can just work on his foundation a little bit, he's going to be unstoppable.
So thank you for doing that. I know it wasn't easy in this format, but what I want to do is challenge everybody watching live or in the replay. Make a list today. Your children, your grandchildren, your brothers, your sisters, your parents, people that are around you, and really write that letter out, whether you write it out or you do a Facebook video and send it to them, because that gift of how you see people is what each of us hunger for each and every day, is to know how we're being seen in the world, and more importantly, how we're being seen by the people that mean the most to us.
Yes.
And so if you can take a moment and look eye to eye, write in longhand format type of thing, and start with that statement of I see you blank as, and just speak honestly, it will be more valuable than gold to them. One of the unanswered questions that I have about my mother, and I've settled it and I'm okay with it, was how did she see me now versus when I was the kid that she had to constantly go to school and pick up early. The kid that they used to stand on the back porch at night and try and figure out what to do with. I would have loved to have a moment where my mother turned to me and say, you know what, this is who I see you as. But my mom, because of who she was, and I love her dearly, and I am more like her than not. She was always driving and always pushing and showing me where I could go next and what I could do better and where I needed to step up my game, which was great because she was investing in me. But to have that capsule that you just gave your 3 kids.
Yeah. They amaze me every day and every week. They amaze me with something new, and I see something different in them come out. And then I think, because you go through stages as a parent where you think, gosh, am I failing? Did I do the right thing? And you're thinking, gosh, how are they going to turn out as adults? And I look at my kids and they have great work ethic. They're kind to other people. They do the right thing. They don't hurt people. And they have fantastic work ethic. They're just, they're talented. They're creative. And I can't wait to see how someday they channel that.
I think this is only speculation, but I think there's like this entire channel that once you become a parent, you're blocked from, and kids are like back screen offline.
Yeah.
Figuring out how to would drive us insane, because like my son will like for an entire week have me just boiling with frustration, and then it's like he gets an instant message like, okay, now switch it up on him, and I'm like, okay, where did this kid come from?
Yeah.
So I do agree with you. I think that they constantly amaze and excite us.
They do, and it's really cool when they get older, Eric. You're in for a treat when they get older and they start to see things differently. And they turn that little corner and you're kind of like, wow, they get it,
I think my son, my daughter has special needs. So I think he's starting to get like, okay, I need to make a little allowance. I need to become he's always treated her with no exception, which is great. But I think he's now realizing that the gap is grown. And because they're only 15 months apart, and the gap has grown, and he needs to walk backwards and pick her up to explain things. I'm like, oh, thank God, because otherwise she would have been at her own.
Right.
And so, every so often he'll do something. I'll be like, okay, we're safe. He does care about her.
Oh, they will. It comes out in ways you can't believe. And my son Matthew wrote a poem about my daughter Amanda when she was little, and it is so sweet. And it's about her feet pitter-patting down the hall in the morning, and it's just really cute, to see that kind of love they have for each other.
I love that because my son doesn't want to sit next to it. If they're sitting at the table, because her right side is non-functional. He's like, please don't set her there. And I'm like, why? And it's like, because she falls over on me and it interrupts my eating. Okay. Yeah, so they have to, they actually think this thing out. And I'm just like, oh, Lord, what do you guys do every day that I'm not paying attention? I want to thank you. And now it is time for the Fun Friend Friday part. Are you excited?
I'm excited.
For those of you who haven't seen a Fun Friend Friday, I don't wear these shirts regularly, but it's just part of Fun Friend Friday. And they're harder and harder to find. But we have a group of envelopes, and inside the envelopes are our leadership words like legacy, consistency, growth, sacrifice. And I asked my son to shuffle the cards and stuff the envelopes, and he does so, and then he hands them off to me. I don't know if he did them this week. He seemed kind of quick about it, but we'll see what happens. So in the envelope, we have the red balloon, the blue diamond, the rainbow, the yellow moon, or as it's being called lately, the banana, green clover, orange star, and pink heart. Yes, the Lucky Charms symbols. And yes, you guys, I know they've added charms and marshmallows, and now there's even a Golden Girl one.
Oh, boy.
But as you think about it and everybody tells you which one they think you should pick, we got to do the theme music for Fun Friend Friday. Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Do you remember the show?
I remember that show. I love that show.
I used to see the little short one, Estelle Getty, like once a month because she belonged to this club we went to. So you got one in mind?
I'm saying the rainbow.
All right, let me find it here in the stack. So I have a playlist of songs I won at my funeral. I know, weird things people do. I'm not sure if I should add that one or not now that it's become such a regular in my life. So you pick the rainbow.
Celebration song.
Pardon?
It should be a celebration song.
Yeah, everybody walking in, it should be like when they lean down and lick in the coffin, I could be lip syncing. Thank you for being in the frame. I see it differently. All right, so you picked the rainbow, and I'm going to show it as I open it so nobody thinks I switched it up. Curiosity is your word.
Ooh, curiosity. So I think it is so important to be curious about what is out there that you haven't explored yet. Never, never, never stop being curious, because there's so much waiting for you in this world that you haven't yet explored, you haven't heard, you haven't touched. Go find it, be curious, and live life abundantly.
I love that. So what is it that you're on the edge of exploring?
Right now, well, I've spent the last 8 months in some heavy transition, really going through, 8 months ago, I went through, well, for the last 2 years, I went through some big changes and some hard changes in my life. And so I've spent the last 8 months in transformation. And I'm on a new journey, and I'm exploring the possibilities of becoming a coach. And I'm actually writing a book about that journey.
What's the title? What's the title? Because we'll have to have you on Writers Wednesday.
Okay, well, I have actually, I started a while ago writing a book called Lonely Heart Rising. And that's a story of overcoming trauma and living life with passion and purpose in spite of that, and how to, teaching people how to rebuild their life after that and make it fantastic. The other book that it's funny, when you go through the transformation, your ideas change. And what has come to me recently, and that I just started recently, was a new book. And I'm trying to decide which one to pursue, because I've got a lot into one, but then now I'm feeling really strong to go for the second. And it's called The Journey to Jesus. And it's a story of one woman's story of finding safety, security, and love in life.
I love both of those. You need to talk to Pat Garno.
Okay.
I'll send you her offline on the second one. So as a coach, what I would say is sit in your quiet space, create your quiet space. Either physically put both books, left hand and right hand, or on the left side of the room and the right side of the room, and look at one and breathe into it, see into it, and then do the other. And instinctively, your spirit will guide you and say, I need this one first. Because you can always come back and do the second one. I joke that I've been writing the same book now for about 1.5 years, because every time I get a new idea or a new thought or lessons learned at a dying man's bedside, I want to somehow cram it into the one that I'm working on. And I finally started just keeping note cards with book outlines and thinking, you know what? I don't need to put that in this one. That's a different story, a different book, a different reader. And it may or may not show up. And it, time will tell. I always think it's much like fruit on a tree. It ripens when it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And if you try and pick it too early, it's bitter.
And you have to go with your feeling and go with your gut. I feel like the Holy Spirit talks to us, and if you're in tune with that. When I sat down and outlined the journey to Jesus, I just felt it so strong, like, okay, this is what I need to do. I need to shift my focus and put it here. So
don't be afraid of setting the other one aside as an incomplete or unfinished, or I started this and just like always, I never finish it kind of mindset.
Right.
Just instead look at the other as, I've been called into this field, this season, this harvest for now, and I can return to the other thing as I'm needed. For sure.
And the other is something I still feel passionately about. But it may have to go on hold right now.
It's kind of like kids. Some days you're all about one, and some days you're about all, and some days you're about none.
Yeah. And you really have to be feeling it to do it well. So you have to be in that moment and living into it. And I think the transformation that I've been through in the last 8 months has brought me to a place where I'm able to see that this is what I need to do.
I love that. I'm excited. So when is it going to be finished?
Well, I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted.
No. My coaching style is accountability and challenge.
Well, since I just came up with the outline 2 weeks ago and started, so I'm going to say midsummer.
Midsummer. So like a 4th of July release?
Maybe. Mm-hmm.
Think of it. The independence, 4th of July, the freedom of being finished.
Yes. That would be good.
Okay, so we're going to set that as our vision date.
Sure.
All right, you heard it, Amanda. I'm not sure if you're still here, but you can watch it and replay.
You might have gone to work by now, so. It usually has to be.
Don't worry, she'll watch it and replay it. She'll be like, Mom, you said.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being a Fun Friend Friday. I want to thank you for the lessons that you poured into us today. Just, honestly, take that challenge of writing the letter, calling the person, doing a Facebook Live message and say, I see you as.
That's great advice. I'm going to do that.
Thank you. Because at the end of the time, during that period when chaos and illness, or even if it's a sudden death, you don't want them wondering, how did they see me? Like, who did I become to them?
Mm-hmm.
Because we always think the worst. That's just our human nature.
Yeah.
And those that care about us the most carry the most weight in our lives. So give them that gift. It's free. It's like pen and paper charge.
Yeah. It's important. Definitely important. I value that so much that my dad took that time to always tell me what he thought of me and how much he loved me and how much he cared for me. My mom too. She's wonderful that way.
It's funny because our kids, they came to us through a really weird channel. They're adopted children. We consciously, as parents in foster care and then parents in adoptive, have had to tell them who they are and what they are and where they, it's just part of the process of healing. And so we are always telling them, you know what, and we always point out their character and who they're becoming and their qualities and their nature. And so they're pretty well grounded, but I think I could fine tune the message and record one or write one and just have it in a place that he'll never have to worry about, how did Dad see me?
I'll tell you, my dad was a very good, I told you at that. So what he did for my mother was amazing. He wrote down a letter. He wrote a letter to her before he died, and he stuck it in a place so she would find it later. So several years later, after he died, and she was feeling lonely one day, and she was going through some old things, and she came across this beautiful letter that he wrote telling her what a wonderful wife she was and how she was the love of his life and all her wonderful qualities. And it was just a real gift to her.
It's over there. I have my box of special things. My stepdad and I went through a healing process, and he wrote me a letter explaining who he was and how we got to where we were as father and son, and where he wanted me to go as a man. And I was like, heart in my throat, but it freed me from a lot of things.
For sure. And your parents are always thinking those things. We just don't always know it.
No, and I think it's our job as parents to do it in a way that our kids can receive it, not in a way that it's comfortable for us.
Oh, absolutely.
I love that. You've just been phenomenal today.
Oh,
I want to thank you again for being a Fun Friend Friday guest. Are you doing anything live? I know you're in the process of creating and doing things like that.
Yeah, no, I'm here and there. I just created, my good friend and I have created a group, and we haven't really opened it to the public yet because we're practicing right now. But
open it.
It's called Strong for Jesus, and it's going to be pretty amazing. It's going to have a lot of valuable information my friend's a doctor of naturopathy, so she's going to focus on health. And it's all about strong body, strong mind, strong spirit, so we can fight the battle of good and serve others for Jesus.
I'm going to have to connect with her because as my son asked me the other day, he's like, why don't you eat this stuff anymore? And I said, well, I just had a real awareness that if it had a mommy, I don't want to eat it. And he sort of was like thinking on it, but for a lot of other reasons. So I'm going to have to connect with her because I have questions on that whole process.
Yeah, she's a great resource. So I'll connect you to her and she can answer a lot of questions. She's really good and she really cares to serve others. So
I think it'd be a great group to open up. I know that there is a shift in awareness going on, at least in the people that I'm walking with, that I think you have a really interesting thing, health and spirit. Yeah. So yeah, we'll look for it. If you need to post it here below. We've got the July book coming up. We got a lot of good things going on.
Yes, we do. It's going to be fun. We're in for a new adventure.
You are just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to have to get off this thing and start writing like a mad woman.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've never wanted to walk away from a challenge, so.
That's the kind of coaching that I do. I love coaching. I absolutely love the process of coaching, and it's because I think I see the potential in others, and I love to pull that forward. Yeah. And I know that me personally, I love to be challenged. I love to play a hard game of tennis, so to speak. Yeah. And if somebody takes it easy on me, it makes me feel less valued. Yeah. And so when I approach coaching, I challenge you to who you can become, not where you're at. So I believe that you can meet the goal. I believe you'll exceed the goal. And then we'll be talking in July about your new book, and we'll be reading it together and having a Writer's Wednesday. Okay. All right?
All right. Thank you so much, Eric. I just appreciate you having me. And
thank you for being a guest. Yeah. Everybody, I will see you back here on Monday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern for another Success Life Live. In the meantime, share this out, invite friends to join us. Connect with Julia offline if you'd like, or through Facebook chat or whatever it is. Encourage her on her book and find out more about what she's working on. And I'll connect with you later today as well about Pat, all right? Because I think you two need to talk.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would love that.
All right. You have a fantastic Friday. And thank you again for being a Fun Friend Friday guest.
Thank you, Eric. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.